when I was battling my mental health for all those years, I don't believe that I was resilient. I learned resiliency by winning one small goal and achieving one small goal at a time.
Welcome to the Level Up Life Muscle and Mindset Mastery, where we help people rebuild their lives through mindset, fitness, recovery, and purpose, one conversation at a time. I'd like to welcome back Brandon Hillaker. So if you scroll back to around this time last year, Brandon joined us and talked about his Try for Hope. We'll get into it later in the episode, but he's got a book and just had a movie that came out, so I highly recommend you check those out. So welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me again, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I always enjoy having a conversation with you guys.
Yeah, so you wrote a little paper there. Was that for college?
Yeah, so I ended up taking a theories of personality class in one of my psychology classes. And I wrote this paper about, how does a personality develop? And I was able to really kind of take my background and everything that I've learned while I was getting a psychology degree and kind of just come up with my own personality theory on how we develop personalities, how we develop habits, positive and negative coping skills.
Yeah. So I highly recommend everyone watching, listening, really think about your experience with what we're going to dive into here, how it relates to you. It was eye-opening for me just reading the paper and kind of reflecting on my childhood into my adult life.
Right.
So let's dive in right into Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs has been around for a long time, and it's very debatable within the field of psychology. However, I see it on a personal level. Like the hierarchy needs is like a pyramid, right? And it talks about how we're always trying to, our actions are trying to complete these hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. And it's like psychological safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and then self-actualization.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I was trying to get these needs met, and I was using a lot of negative coping skills to achieve these needs, to, just put a roof over my head, for food, sometimes sleeping under a pine tree or in the streets. And I used a lot of negative coping skills during this process, self-medicating, lying, cheating, stealing, doing whatever I can to find a bed, find a roof, find food, find friends, find belonging, find, a group of people to be with.
Right. I think that really, the base foundation, all those physiological needs like food, right, water, shelter. I think those, simple as they may sound, and I know it's easy to take for granted. Like, we have party stores on every corner, and you can go in and get a candy bar if you're hungry. But when you don't have money and you can't afford food, it's like, how can you even think about love and belonging if you're hungry?
Right.
So I look at it like you're starving, you have no security of being able to go and just relax in your home, then it's like, how do you work on the love and belonging, the self-esteem, and even to think about self-actualization is
right.
So, and I think about people that are caught up in, repetitive criminal behaviors that are, maybe it's generational trauma or just something they experience that are constantly battling. That's because, it doesn't necessarily, you could be safe, but you could have trauma from your past that makes you feel unsafe all the time.
Right. How can you go to work when you haven't eaten in 2 days?
Yeah.
When you don't know where you're going to sleep at night? How can you be successful in life? How can you go to work and have a 40-hour, week job if your needs aren't being met, And like I've been watching the podcast and following you along, and what you're doing with the recovery programs in jail. And when I got out of jail, I would always go back to those same patterns, those same behaviors, those same group of friends, right? And those needs were never met, you know? Jail and the rehabs and the inpatient hospitals, those needs were being met. That was an opportunity for me to develop growth mindset, to develop positive coping skills, to think about life and process, like, what am I going to do when I get out of here? But when you get out, right? That's the important part.
The safety and
right.
Those things kind of, you're back thrust into chaos.
Right. And I think it's really important, you know, like, what's the next step? You know, how here you are in this recovery program or inpatient hospital, wherever you are, what's next? What happens when I get out, you know? And that's a scary feeling. I remember when I was locked up and when I was in inpatient hospitals, it's like, what am I going to do when I get out? How am I going to be successful in life? Like, you know,
yeah,
it's hard.
And when you get caught up in that cycle and that's what you know, it's hard to think about, what do I want for a career when you're thinking, I don't know where I'm going when I get out of here.
Right.
I know a gentleman just got out of the recovery pod and had to go to the homeless shelter. So he is automatically dealt a little bit tougher hand than someone who has a home to go to with security and safety. And because as much as the open door in Midland is a blessing, it's, you know, it's not a place where you can relax during the day. Right. You have to leave, right? So I think as a society, how can we do better? You know, I'm always thinking that, but
right.
Especially for me, when I went through rehab and got to get out the shovel within a structured environment, the safety, they fed us. We got 3 meals a day and a nighttime snack, so we weren't hungry.
Right.
So though talking the hierarchy of needs, my physiological needs were met. I had safety and security within the facility. There was a structured schedule, and the environment was taken care of. So it allowed me to actually dig into, okay, I don't have to worry about food. I don't have to worry about this, and this. Why am I doing these things?
Right.
And I think the recovery pod's doing the same thing, where it's allowing people to really, like, I wouldn't call it like self-actualization at the top, but they're able to start diving into the whys of their behavior. Why do I keep repeating patterns? Why do I feel like I need to use drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be?
Right. You have, when your needs are met, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of wasting so much time on where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? Where am I going to get money? Where am I going to get my fix? Spending all that time, now you have more time to think about your goals, mm-hmm. right? And you have more energy to spend on thinking about those goals and accomplishing those goals. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to, as soon as possible, when you get out of those environments, to try to start setting up some of those hierarchy of needs and getting those things in place and finding a place where you belong and finding a support network, you know, like joining clubs, triathlon clubs, swim clubs, bike clubs, workout, go to the gym,
yeah.
Right? Go to these places where there are a lot of people that are sober, that have been in those situations that you can relate to and talk to, but are also supportive and simply say, you know, like you, my shirt, you know, you got this, you know, like you got this, you can do this, you can get through this. Like, I've been there. And it's really important something I truly believe is, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Birds of a feather flock together. Right? These things used to be told to me all the time, and I just
Jim
blow
Rohn
them
quote,
off.
You are the average of the 5 people you're around the most.
100%. You know, and if you break away, when you get out of these programs and you use some forward thinking skills and say, what's next? What am I going to do next? Well, I'm going to join a gym. I'm going to look on Facebook to see what clubs. There's Freeland runners. There's Bay City runners. There's Team ATP. There's Tri-City cyclists. There's so many clubs out there of people that are achieving goals, that are supportive group of people that want to see you succeed, rather than saying, let's go hit up the bar,
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about that is once you're aware of it, you can cultivate that circle on your own.
Right.
You don't have to just settle for like, all these people are my friends. I think it's important for people to choose, like, who's going to help you build the future you want.
Right.
Whose presence in your life is going to benefit you. And just exposure, right? So, going back to when I was in treatment, are you familiar with Tony Robbins?
A little bit, yeah. The speaker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a motivational speaker, but he's really big on visualization. So I sat there, and this is all my needs of that pyramid are being met. I'm learning to love myself again. I feel a sense of belonging within this group, like recovering addicts. Like, all these people understand the struggle that I'm going through. I felt a sense of belonging.
Right.
So I started thinking about, like, what do I want with my future? And I did a purpose workshop, and it brought two core components together. What fulfills my life? What fills my cup? And it was just helping others.
We're 100%.
It was, and it can be, I have explained this tons of times, but it can be as simple as holding the door open for someone. I like to make it awkward too. Someone's running, like, I'm up at the door of the gas station. They're halfway between the pumps and the door, where I hold the door open, I wave to them, and I'm just standing there waiting, and they give the old Midwesterner, oh, and then they start jogging. They come in, and sometimes people are like, "Why did you hold the door open so long?" I wanted to.
Right.
And those small moments make people feel seen. And then on a macro level, like, and everything in between, try and help people through this show, through being vulnerable and sharing my thoughts on social media. Just everything in between, the conversations I have, the messages I get from people, like, helping people fills my cup.
Right.
The other component on this purpose workshop was, what am I passionate about? And ever since I was able to walk, my first word when I was a baby was ball. Ever since I've been able to walk, I've been very physically active.
Right.
So I'm very passionate about weight training. Love doing it. It's fascinating to me how the body works from a nutritional standpoint, from a physical standpoint, how muscles work in tandem with each other to perform different movements. So I geek out on that stuff. And I had a light bulb moment in treatment where I was like, I love weight training, love helping people. Can make a career out of being a personal trainer and guiding people towards their fitness goals. So that's when I started, I realized what I want to do. This is what I'm here to do. Help people get in shape, change their life through fitness, that's all evolved even to where we're at here with this. But I started visualizing, like, what does that look like? And I would stand in the mirror, and I would, on a physical level, I would look at myself in the mirror, and I would imagine what I wanted my body to look like. And when I got to that point, what it felt like to be there, to have that success. What did the air smell like? What temperature was it? All the details.
Right.
Then the connecting point was the work. And I went to work between, and it was the same thing career-wise. I wanted to be regarded as one of the best trainers in the area. How do I do that? A lot of education. So I cultivated my Facebook feed, my Instagram feed to become educational. I read books. I read PubMed studies. I made, educating myself on physical fitness, nutrition, part of my daily routine, even in 5-minute increments, and from that to longer reads. So that was the work from being a nobody trainer to where I'm at today. And that visualization is enormous, because once you imagine you're already there, all it takes is the work. It's like,
Yeah.
I know what it feels like for that success. I've visualized it down to every little detail. Now it's just off and running. Did you do anything like that with your...
Yeah, to kind of talk about that is, I think one of the misunderstood like social norms is, right, positive coping skills are automatically known. Right. And they're not, right? We have to be taught them. And you talked about Tony Robbins and how you watched this and you learned how to do that. He taught you how to do that. Like I never had that. Like I didn't know what like SMART goals, like kind of like what you're talking about. SMART goals were specific, measurable,
attainable, realistic, and time bound or timely.
And then you break down each one of those goals into subcategories and how to accomplish that goal, right? And then you manifest your goal. Like I am a true believer in manifestation. Like when I did the Try for Hope, it was a 400-mile triathlon. In my mind, I went through it and crossed that finish line 100 times, right? It was done. It was in the bag. All I had to do was go do it. I manifested that. I sat down and wrote down SMART goals. Like, what do I need to do to ride my bike 330 miles? What do I need to do to swim 5 miles across the Mackinac Straits? What do I need to do to run 65 miles when the longest I've ever ran was 20 miles? I wrote down each step, talking about coach, nutrition, every aspect of this. How did I learn that? Going to school, taking psychology classes. You talked about educating yourself. Education was the most impactful thing I've ever had in my life. Educating myself is huge.
Yep.
And learning about me, learning about my mind, my body, learning how it works, it was huge. And having someone like a mentor, or like watching people like Tony Robbins, David Goggins, all these people, how do they achieve their goals and learn from them?
Right. Once you visualize it, once you go through that process and imagine that it's real, and you can't, I want the audience to understand it's not about like thinking about getting that new vehicle with no idea of how to get it, or in my case with my physical body, the changes that I wanted to make with it, because I was over 200 pounds and at a point so I went from 143 when I went into jail. I left jail, went to treatment at about 173, which to gain that much weight in 3 months in jail with what they feed you is pretty crazy. And then I ended up 205, 206, leaving Harbor Hall. And that was because I wasn't eating before, part of that, and I wasn't training like I could have or wanted to. But I wasn't happy with my body. And I was, my body composition was nowhere near what it is now. And it took a lot of work, right? But I looked in the mirror and I was like, I am willing to sacrifice my free time to make this happen.
Right.
Not just like, well, I'd like to change my body composition. It was, okay, this is my daily schedule. How do I fit in the training? How do I fit in the meal prep? How do I fit in? And I made it happen instead of making excuses, which, it's easy to be like, I'm too busy to meal prep. But if you're too busy, it's just not as high of a priority as it needs to be. Because if you really, really, truly want it, I believe people make time for it.
Right. I think a lot of people too, when they think about, like manifestation, or were you thinking about the, your goals, is that if you think about it hard enough, it's just going to happen.
Yep.
Right. If I think about buying a Lamborghini, it's just going to happen. It's like, no, you have to manifest it to be and put in the work. Mm-hmm. You have to put in the time and the effort and the energy to do that. It's not just going to happen.
Yep. The work is what makes it happen.
Right.
But it's also the manifestation to do that, to visualize it. You really have to believe that it's possible. And I think that's where the self-esteem really comes into play, because you have to believe that you're capable.
Right.
you know, and I look back on my story, and I had people that supported me, that believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I can do these anchors that are on me now, like being my past, that doesn't define who I am in my future. I can get strong enough to where my past is always going to be attached to me,
Right.
but I can get strong enough to where these don't matter anymore. And it took studying. It took you mentioned taking that SMART goal and really like breaking it down into smaller pieces. And that's how you gain confidence in your ability to do something. Like, you didn't start out running 65 miles.
Oh my God, no.
You didn't start out riding 300 and some miles. You worked up.
Right.
You started at whatever it was. But it's the same with anybody training for a powerlifting event. They don't start out at their peak weight. It's, you gain confidence through those micro wins, and just in the consistency when you're showing up for yourself every day, whether it be meal planning, you know, your training. I remember you showing me your schedule, and your training was very, 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 very.
That's a lot, man. I'm training for my next thing right now, and I'm burning about 4,000 calories like a day this week, just going into, this is just strength training and mobility work. Mm-hmm. And I'm already burning like 4,000 calories a day for this next goal, you know, and I'm really only like training like 2-3 hours a day.
Yeah. And I've seen, you do prioritize the recovery components 100%, too, because that's how you get up the next day and be able to train and let your body and your nervous system bounce back.
You need to bounce back. Yeah. You know, something you said about the small wins every day. There's this big debate about resiliency being a genetic factor or a something that you learn. You know, is it a personality trait or is it a genetic factor? And something I noticed with me when I started at Delta College, like I was so scared to tell people about my mental health. I was so scared that I tell people that I acted on my thoughts of suicide. I was so scared to tell people I was on disability, right? And I was so scared to go back to school. And my first semester, I got a 4.0, right? And I believed in myself a little more. The next semester, I got another 4.0, and I believed in myself a little more. And then I saw the Bay City Triathlon poster, and I went and I achieved that goal. And I believed myself in a little more, right? When I started school, I wasn't resilient. You know, like when I was battling my mental health for all those years, I don't believe that I was resilient. I learned resiliency by winning one small goal and achieving one small goal at a time and believing in myself more and more and more and more. And the more I achieved and the bigger goals that I achieved, the more I believed that was possible. You know, people used to say to me all the time that you can accomplish anything. And I'm like, what? Shut up. You know, like I didn't believe that. But now I see it. Mm-hmm. I truly believe it because I have accomplished one thing and I have that resiliency. I've cultivated that resiliency. My mentors and the people that I'm around have helped cultivate these, you know, these growth mindset and this resiliency. And
which goes back to who we surround ourselves
100%.
With, how much that matters.
Right. Surround yourself around people that you look up to and you're like, that you're mentors and you idolize, and then talk to them and listen to how they overcome their obstacles in their life and how they got to where they're at today, and then learn their positive coping skills and their traits and implement them into your own life. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're going to hang around people that hustle to get their fix when you're self-medicating, you're going to learn those traits, mm-hmm. right? But if you're hanging around someone with a PhD that have overcome multiple obstacles to get that PhD, you're going to learn how they did those things.
Right.
And that's huge, you know?
Yeah, and it's just the cultivating the ability to not quit.
Right. And that's a huge one too, you know, just
whether it's a client with a fitness goal or someone going to school or someone falls off the wagon, you know, like they relapse. That happens. It took me a few falls to get back up. I just, you know, I'd try again until it stuck.
Right.
I see it with other people, and they have to get to that point, you know.
Don't be afraid of failure.
Yeah.
Fail and get back up, because that's who you learn.
Some of the best lessons I ever got were from failure.
Yeah. Look at the baseball players' batting averages.
Yeah.
How many times do they strike out? How many times do they swing at the ball? But when they connect, they're able to hit it out of the damn park.
Yeah.
You know, don't give up just because you're striking out all the time. Keep going after it over and over. Every time you fall, get back up and keep going after it.
I think about, you mentioned Goggins, and I've listened to some of his shows, and I'm like, man, this guy doesn't have any cartilage in his knees and he's running.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
Right.
And I think about the mental strength that he's had to, what has he went through that he's cultivated that? And then I hear about his, tying knots underwater with his commanding officer right in his face, and his experience in the SEALs, and like all these things he's went through, from being overweight to joining the SEALs to what he does now, inspiring people. And I'm like, that when I do some hard things, like when it comes to physical fitness, I think about like, man, I need to embrace my inner Goggins, because I need to become crazy and push through this. That's what it takes. Because, I wouldn't say I idolize him, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. Just to achieve what he's done and the time he's put in. And, like I said, I don't know what he's been through to cultivate that level of resilience, but if he can do it, I can do it.
He has two, I don't know if you've read or listened to his audiobooks, but they're amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Like when I first started my workout journey, I listened to him. And the one thing that I really respect about Goggins the most is not that he's done these ultra marathons and these 100-mile marathons. It's the fact that how many obstacles he faced, and every time he faced it, he just overcomes the obstacle over, no matter how many times it knocks him down to his knees or like kicks him on his ass. Like, you overcome the obstacle and you learn the valuable lesson in life, right? Don't allow it to be like, oh, I'm facing an obstacle today and I'm just going to give up on life.
Right.
Get back up.
Like a fainting goat.
Right.
Are you going to be a fainting goat or a Goggins, right?
One of the things that, like, I have bipolar, right? Mm-hmm. And I have my highs. I'm either going up or I'm coming down all the time.
Yep.
And when I'm down, it's hard. When I'm up, life's pretty easy, get that mania. But when I'm down, it's hard. And I give myself one day to lick my wounds, to lay in bed one day. And that one day I lay there and I process life. I think about the outcomes. I use some forward thinking skills. How can I get through this? What do I need to do? Do I need to cold plunge? Do I need to go work out? What do I need to eat? What was the trigger? Why am I like this? What's going on? And I process life for one day. And the next day I make myself get up and go in that 40-degree water. And then I make myself go to the gym and I go tie one on at the gym, right? To bounce back from that. And that's where that resiliency kicks in. And I think like cold plunging, that's a huge resiliency, right? You're in 40-degree water and every bell and whistle on your head screaming, get out, get out, get out. But you're like, no, I'm the boss. You're going to sit here, suffer, embrace it. And that's where that resiliency kicks in. And I think that's missing in a lot of people, is the resiliency factor of, I can't get out of bed. I can't do this. Some people can't, right? But some people like me, for a long time, I chose to lay in bed for days and days and days. And it just continued that depression.
Yep.
And now, like, I allow myself the 1-day rule. You'll have 1 day. And after 1 day, you better get your ass out of bed.
Now let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Pine Haven Assisted Living. At Pine Haven Assisted Living, they believe in making every resident feel at home. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of Hemlock, Michigan, they offer compassionate care in a family-like environment where residents can enjoy independence with the support they need. Registered nurse-owned and operated, their team provides personalized care, home-cooked meals, and a range of activities to ensure your loved ones continue to live a fulfilling life. They also have alpacas and llamas on site to enrich the lives of their residents. Experience the warmth and comfort of Pine Haven. Call them today at 989-295-6632. That's 989 295-6632, or you can visit them on their website at pinehavenassistedliving.com. That's pinehavenassistedliving.com for more information. Now, back to the Level Up Life. I think about like how you've created that environment. We're not talking about physical environment. We're talking about a mental environment for you where you give yourself grace for a day to bounce back. And I don't think that's unique to bipolar. I think it's, there's days I just, after going, I just need to decompress.
Right.
Maybe it's sitting in the sun for a couple hours. Maybe it's, turning on some Pink Floyd or something. Just kicking back and decompressing.
You have to be able to give your time to process life, process the obstacle, process ways to overcome the obstacle. You have to give yourself a timeout sometimes, and you have to give yourself grace. It's okay to fail. It's okay to take a break, but get back up.
Yeah, and I relate it to strength training, which has taught me an enormous amount about life. But we were just talking about the nervous system and how important it is to have that recovery planned in your days.
Right.
Like the cold plunges, whether you get some self-care with massage, stretching, doing some yoga, all those things. I think about it like, I feel like life happens in these same type of progressive overload. Like you build resistancy through progressive overload. And then, like what you're talking about, those moments where we have to decompress, it makes me think about a deload for a power lifter.
Right.
You want to cut your weights back. You want to ease the strain on the tendons. You want to ease the strain on the nervous system and just let your body recover. And I think that what we're discussing here with the rest is just to let the mind recover, the soul, whatever, all of it.
Just like training for triathlons, right? You have to cut back on training a week or two before the event, depending on how big the event is. Yep. You have to let those muscles heal. Yep. Your brain is a muscle. You have to let it heal. You have to let it sit there and just like come to terms with where you're at right now and process.
That's the deload. Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing. I wonder if Goggins had anything like that. I'd be interested to hear his take, or if he was just like always go, and that's why he has no cartilage. But once you get to the self-esteem component, you can start thinking about like the morality, the how do you want to live type stuff. Right. What do you want to be involved in? What do you truly believe in? Like more of the psychological stuff, what's the word I'm looking for? Philosophical points of view.
Right.
Because you can't be thinking about like, I think gray siding would look really good on this house with a white door, or should it be black? Like being creative with home remodels, or customizing your vehicle or your motorcycle, or anything. Like you can't get to that level if you're worried about if you're hungry or not.
Right.
Like just doesn't happen. I look at just this whole pyramid, and that's like, it's 100%. It
makes sense, right?
100%.
And the thing that, like the self-actualization at the very top of the pyramid, right? I really want to, something I have really learned is like, once you get there, you're not just there, right? You have to continuously strive every day to make sure that the 4 previous things are set up every day.
Yep.
You can fall in and out of that every day, depending on whatever's going on in your life. If a loved one passes away, right? If a loved one gets locked up, if a loved one's in a hospital, if your dog dies, if something happens, right? It's going to constantly knock you down, right?
Knock you out of that.
Right.
Or so then you start questioning your confidence, your,
right.
All the other things like family, love and belonging, sense of connection. Like, will I be able to see my family who's locked up now?
Right.
That sense of connection you worry about, or if it's a relationship, more of an intimate relationship, then it's like you're not in that top where you're focusing on your purpose.
And I think about like me and my bipolar a lot, right? Like when I'm in a very manic high or in a very manic low, I'm not thinking about self-actualization, right? Like, yeah, I'm either having racing thoughts about, doing something ridiculous, or I'm not having any thoughts and I'm laying in bed. Like once you have all these things set up, you're not there.
Right.
You're constantly trying to achieve and stay in that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really like it, man. Like it just makes a lot of sense for the life that I've lived.
Yeah. And that big one under the self-actualization is the purpose. Because I feel like if you're floating through life without a purpose, you don't get near the level of fulfillment. It's huge for me because it is that helping others. It's literally everything I have built in my life is structured to help others.
Right. Purpose is huge. Like when I was self-medicating my symptoms for a very long time, I was so me, right? Me. I. And when I became sober and went through recovery and went through CBT and DBT and these different programs, in that transition, even though I was sober, I still had that mentality of me, right? And it wasn't until I started having purpose to inspire other people and show what is possible and doing the things that I'm doing that it wasn't me anymore. And that's what gave me purpose, right? Purpose is what keeps us going, to overcome the obstacles, to be resilient, to get up out of bed, to have that one day recovery break. My purpose,
I'm so a little off subject, but connecting to purpose next week, we have 2 young men coming on the show. One of which I met within the system. Now he's working for Buddy. And he asked me, this was a while ago, and he's like, Adam, I want to come on your show. And I said, I'm all for having you on, but I want to see you make some progress first.
Yeah.
And he's doing really well now.
That's cool.
And it's just like that. So between Waz and I and Buddy, and it can't be just one person. It takes community, especially with the youth. And then you talk adults, like you talk about the recovery community. It takes a village. I'm sure you had a village helping you.
100%. I still have a village.
Yeah. So it's just really cool to see, I was a small part of his journey that has helped him establish where he's at in his life. And to be able to have him on now, staying out of trouble, like staying sober, all these things. It's like
witnessing growth is motivation for self.
That is literally purpose for me.
Right.
It's experiencing my purpose is just being a component to someone else's growth is like, there's times where I hear someone say something or I see someone I've talked to post something on Facebook. It doesn't even have to be me hearing, and I just I'll start tearing up, man, because witnessing their thought patterns changing and embracing recovery, or I talked with the guys in the jail pod about the us versus them, because it's when I was leading a criminal life and my activities were criminal. It was me versus the cops, me and my people versus the cops. They were the enemy. Right. Cowboys and Indians, like when I was cops and robbers, like as a kid, when you play cops and robbers, who were you? Who did you identify with? That's just a question for you guys to think about. But, hearing these guys start saying, well, I got me here. That's a huge step.
Yeah.
When you accept responsibility, because when you accept that responsibility, like the choice, I broke the law, I bought the drugs that I overdosed on that led me to being arrested for possession. That was all me. Wasn't anything to do with the cops.
Right.
But also when I realized that, it gave me a tremendous amount of power because I had the keys to the car. Where I went next was all on me.
So I think accountability is huge, right? Like owning. So, excuse me. Let's fast forward a little bit and talk about accountability here because this is really good. While I was at Delta and throughout this process of change, I've been able to use a lot of the programs that Michigan has set in place to make people successful. I've gotten a psychology degree from the Michigan Reconnect program. That was a huge one. I worked with Michigan Rehabilitation Services, which is a program that helps you achieve your goals when you have a disability. And another huge one is the Operation Clean Slate. Do you know what Operation Clean Slate is? So they passed the law that if you have a criminal background, it makes it easier to get expunged. And I've been able to expunge my entire criminal record. That was a huge thing for me going into the field of psychology because I had a felony, a DUI. I had a bunch of misdemeanors. I couldn't do what I'm doing today, you know? But when it's expunged, own it, right? It's about accountability. Yeah, I did it, but it doesn't define me. Move past it. You can overcome it. There's programs out there to help you overcome it. It's not going to define the trajectory of your life anymore, but own it, but move on, you know?
So, little side note here, I'm not eligible for that, unfortunately, because the way that my charges were laid out, from what I understand, I had 2 felonies from 05. Then I had 4 from 07. This is when I was in like the thick, very bad part of my addiction. There was no like trying for recovery at this point. I was in a really dark place mentally.
Yeah.
So the way the charges in 07 lined up were considered 2 separate offenses because they were dated like, it was like September 4th, September 6th. So the 24-hour law rule doesn't apply because it's just over. So then I got, in 2016, I got possession of a controlled substance, possession of analog, which created 4 instances. So my 05 ones were automatically expunged. And for me to get the rest of them, I can get 2 more incidents expunged, and it would still leave me with 1 remaining.
I think what I had to do is I had to go one at a time from the most recent to the longest, right? So like I had to get 1 expunged like backwards.
Yeah. Well, I've been dragging my feet on this, and part of it is a little self-doubt.
Yeah.
Like, but I got some letters from community leaders around, and my plan is to apply for a pardon, and justifying like why do I deserve a pardon? Because for one, I'm literally like it's a technicality of why I'm not of it. It doesn't work with the law, the current law in place, and I feel like I do try to give back to the community as much as possible. I never run from my personal accountability. Like if I get it completely wiped clean, it's not like I'm gonna stop talking about it and never discuss the fact that this is part of who I am. It's more of just like opportunities open. Do you know I tried to register for class at Delta College back in, it was 2006. and I talked to a counselor there, admissions counselor, and I wanted to become a physical therapist. So this kind of dates, like, you look back at what I was interested in back then even, and the counselor told me that I could get the degree, but I probably would never be able to be licensed in the state because I had a felony
record.
So, and that just makes me think, like, I understand they were trying to protect me from putting in time, but it was licensed to go into homes. So could I have worked in a medical setting, not in someone's home? Because that's what they reference. So it's just like, I try not to ever put a cap on people's potential.
Right.
Because I don't want to be the one that leads someone to not believe in themselves.
Right. Yeah, I think Operation Clean Slate has changed a lot for a lot of people. However, I think some of the law can still be changed. I don't think that if you're convicted of multiple offenses that's directly related to substance abuse or a mental health related, or if you're going through something, that you should be held accountable to that for your entire life if you have made the change and put in the work, if you went through the therapy and the recovery and you're a productive member of society tonight. It doesn't matter if you have 4 or 5 or 6 felonies. You should be able to knock those out. And it takes time, right? And work. But yeah, it's pretty unfortunate.
It's frustrating too, because for me, I got to a point, I had a friend, really close friend, pass away, and he didn't carry life insurance. So his employer helped him, and the community came together, helped his wife and their kid, and I was like, I want my family to be taken care of. And it took me 2 years I would call these life insurance companies and say, yeah, I'd like to purchase life insurance, and they'd ask these questions. When they'd get to, do you have a felony?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we can't insure you. I'm like, okay. So I'd go to the next one, go to the next one. And then I'd get so frustrated, I'd shelf it for a minute, because I'm just like, this is bullshit.
Right.
Like, I can't even get life insurance. So.
I can't get life insurance because I have bipolar.
Right. Yeah.
What?
So the way that these insurance companies really look at this is, and I'm sure it's maybe something same, they look at it statistically.
Right, calculate the risk.
So this individual, me, history, substance abuse, which is higher mortality risk.
Right.
Felony record, higher mortality risk. So they judge me by the things that I was.
Right.
But they don't look at, okay, fitness trainer.
Right.
Should be like
ultra triathlete.
Right. Nonprofit board member. They don't look at like the positives, and they don't associate me with what I'm doing. They associate with everything I was 10 years ago.
Right.
So it's really frustrating for me, and that's I'm part of why I'm trying to get the pardon. And I really think this is why I'm really passionate about complete justice reform.
Oh, 100%, man.
Is just because we need to. When were these laws made?
Right.
Okay. Some of them were dated back a ton of years. So how do they apply this much later? We need to really, on a schedule, maybe it's every 20 years, go in, reassess. Does this still apply to the current civilization we live in on this level?
I went to the Kalamazoo Psychiatric Hospital to do a public speaking over there. There's 4 psychiatric hospitals left in the state of Michigan. After I spoke in front of doctors, and I really love public speaking, and after I spoke to the doctors, the psychiatric, like the advocates, the mental health advocates that were there, that worked there, they took me for a tour of the facility, right? And I'm going to school for psychology, and I went through all these different CBT, DBT, and all these different therapies. And I'm walking through, and this facility's huge, and on all the doors they say what they do: music therapy, art therapy, DBT, CBT, right? Like all these different programs all over the place. And this really got me thinking, and I went home and I started doing some research, and the psychiatric hospital started closing in the 1960s. John F. Kennedy started the community mental health programs in the community. They started closing the psychiatric hospitals and started increasing community mental health to impact the community. So they kicked a lot of these people out of the psychiatric hospitals, and immediately prison and jail population started increasing by like threefold. So now the psychiatric hospitals as today are prisons and jails. And really think about that, right? Like, and when I was walking through this facility, I was like, why in the world was I not sent here? All those times I would go to jail, I would get out on probation, violate the probation, go back to jail, get out of jail, commit a crime, that's something to do with my bipolar, borderline personality disorder, or having no forward thinking skills for my ADHD, break the law, go to jail, get out on probation, violate probation, go back to jail. Over and over and over again. I ended up in prison boot camp. I went to Jackson to the boot camp. And then I was like, I'm going to get out and change my life. So I went down to Jacksonville to become a commercial diver. Yep, that did not change my life, because then I was stuck with just a whole bunch of crazy people that wanted to jump in hundreds of feet of water, right? It was just a cycle.
And play
went
with
to New Orleans. I lived 2 blocks away from Bourbon Street. I would spend weeks offshore. It was just a cycle. I went to jail in New Orleans. Why wasn't I sent to a psychiatric hospital with all of these rehabilitation programs?
Yeah.
So I 100% believe that there needs to be reform taking place.
Yeah.
Because like we talk about positive coping skills, we talk about the hierarchy of needs. If you're not taught positive coping skills, you learn negative coping skills.
Survival.
Right. I was surviving for years. A part of having borderline personality disorder is learn negative coping skills through a traumatic environment. Right? And then just jail. I didn't have empathy.
The cycle even more.
Right. I had no empathy. You can't learn empathy when you're trying to cheat, steal, and lie your way up through these hierarchy of needs. Why wasn't I sent to a psychiatric hospital? Why didn't I get a year in there and go through CBT, DBT, music therapy, art therapy, writing therapy,
Yeah, one guy in the jail pod mentioned it and said 2 things. The difference between the recovery pod and general population is, 1, you feel like a dog in a kennel. The other, you feel like a human that's actually being encouraged to heal.
Right.
So it's like, I think of my time in Carson City prison, and I went through phase 1 and phase 2, and I get like they're trying to do something in there, but these programs were not what I needed. You can't expect an hour twice a week.
No, you need intense therapy.
Yeah.
And then when you get out, you need another place to go that's a safe environment, right? You need like when you go to an inpatient hospital, they have partial hospitalization programs or the day programs.
So it's transitional.
We need a day program when you get out of jail, when you get out of prison or wherever you are. You need a halfway house that's a safe environment, not really like you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're with the pod in Midland that you've been working on. That's a great start.
Yeah.
But that's a start.
Yeah, we need that. I think a combination of that, looking at, okay, the Justice Department, like the jail is one component. The recovery pod is one component. We need to look at sentencing guidelines. We need to look at what are the punishments for various crimes.
Right.
And really like have a conversation. This isn't for me. This isn't my wheelhouse. I just want to shed light on it because, like I'm not trying to downplay my accountability for this. Forgery it's a serious crime.
Right.
It's a dishonest crime. But the sentencing guidelines are 2 to 14 years. It's a pretty wide margin.
Right.
Why is that? Why is there people doing far worse things? And I look at it from a human standpoint. Like, I had victims in my case that seen money missing from their bank account. I was wrong. I'm not denying that. And I regret it. I wish I wouldn't have done it. But that wound isn't creating significant trauma like an assault or like a sex crime or something that's going to leave a lasting wound. And that's what I really think we need to look at is the human element. I'm just like a voice screaming from the top of the mountain, like, hey, let's look at this. Can we look at this?
I think we need to start asking why. Why are those crimes being committed? Why is this person perpetually in this cycle committing crime after crime after crime? What's going on in his life? Yes, he committed a crime. Yes, he needs to be punished. But how can we stop that cycle?
Yep.
We need to start asking why. What was the trigger? Why is this happening?
You know, it took me 3 incarcerations before the 4th time I got in trouble, 2016, I got to go to, the courts were like, you know what, I think he needs rehab. When the crimes in 05, the crimes in 07, and the crimes in 16, and I had a DUI mixed in between this with the possession of marijuana, everything pointed right at substance use disorder. And it took me 15 years of addiction and struggling in and out of jail, the cycle, to make it to treatment.
I went to a psychologist in 2014 after my overdose. And I had a psychological evaluation, and I had a lot of brain damage. This test took 2 days. It was very difficult for me to like put the round hole in the round box, all these tests. But the point of this is at the back of this test where the results were, she said her recommendations. I recommend cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, work with Michigan Rehabilitation Services to rehabilitate him, to find him a job that he can do, right? Laid out all these steps. And what happened? I did all of that, and look at me now. So why don't we have these testings when people are getting a year in jail or prison? Go see a psychologist when you're locked up and find out what this person needs and then give it to them. You do DBT and CBT and therapy and these therapies in prisons and jails to rehabilitate them, to teach them these positive coping skills, to override the negative coping skills. Yeah. How are they going to learn and stop this cycle by just sitting in jail, watching TV and reading newspapers and books all day long and learning how to become a better or worse criminal?
Right. So, and then let's dig back to the jail thing. So the recovery pod is just one component to this, right?
Yeah.
There's not substance abuse in every case, but a majority of them, yes. So the recovery court program, I credit with, I had accountability. Jail, I had treatment that counted in Harbor Hall up north, 90-day rehabilitation program. Then I had outpatient treatment, meetings, peer support, court system, so more accountability hanging over my head. I went through the drug court program, which is now recovery court, and I literally, like, June 22nd of this year will be 10 years for me, which is like, why didn't something like this exist earlier for me? For how many people, how many lives can we save if we had more programs?
How much money can we save the American taxpayers?
That's what talks. The difference between 1 year housing someone in MDOC is $48,000. 1 year in a recovery court program or other specialty court program is roughly $7,000, I think, is a estimated number I seen. So that's literally, I don't know what the budget is now for prisons, but it's like, let's rehabilitate people. We spend less, and talking generations. If we heal the people now, it doesn't create trauma for the next generation to go through.
You know, I saw this mental health advocate speak at the NAMI conference, and she said something that really resonated with me. And she said that I don't believe that the system is broken. I believe that we never had a system to begin with. When John F. Kennedy shut all those psychiatric hospitals and the jail and prison population skyrocketed, we had an okay system. When he shut that down, that's was when the huge increase, right? And we never came back from that. We never fixed that. We've just been kind of incarcerating people, you know? People with ADHD, you have a high probability of going to jail or prison. Borderline personality disorder, you have a high probability of going to jail or prison. Bipolar, high probability of going to jail or prison. Right? Why are these people committing crimes? Why was I committing crimes? Why were you committing crimes? Let's get to the core of the problem and fix that.
Yeah.
And what you're doing, what you have going on right now with the sign-up sheet, you know, that you sent me the other day, petition, that's a start, right?
It's just shining light on
right. It's a start though. And that's a movement that
we need to get our legislators
100%
are going into office, the people that are getting voted for, we need to get them. Like, this is it should be a campaign thing. Right. Like whose approach is more aligned with your beliefs on this. If someone specifically came up with some solutions, like this is how I believe change can happen, then they probably have my vote.
All right. Yeah.
So before we wrap up here, how do people find your book here?
Oh, yeah. You can check it out on Amazon. Just look up Brandon Hillaker, Monarch, Overcoming Obstacles Through Mental Morphosis. You can get it on Amazon. The 400-mile triathlon from Hell to Paradise last summer, we ended up making a movie. We just premiered that at the State Theater in Bay City, and right now it's in film festivals. We're trying to get judged. I think it's between 30 and 40 different film festivals.
Awesome, man.
And we're waiting to get the results on that, and we're going to be uploading that on Amazon. And that is, the movie and the book is to give hope to people. You know, that's my main message, that you can get through what you're struggling with and give hope. And I'm really excited for the movie to come out on Amazon. I got to work with Attaboy. Attaboy did some of the soundtrack. Yeah, they did the soundtrack awesome. For this.
Former guest.
What's that?
Mike was a former guest.
Yeah, I watched that one.
Yeah.
James Day, who does he does documentaries for like ultra distance athletes and whatever. And he's the one that did the movie. And we're already going into filming movie number 2. The next world record is in California. And it's bigger and dumber than the Try for Hope.
Love it.
It's going to take 16 months to train for this. I'll be doing it in September or August of 2027.
Okay.
And I announced it officially at the premiere of the movie, and I'll announce it officially right now publicly. I'm combining 2 of the world's hardest events into a triathlon that's never been done.
Into one. Yeah, that's awesome. Why not? Right?
Why not, dude? Why not, man? It's Lake Tahoe is a part of the Triple Crown. It's a 21-mile swim at 6,500 feet of elevation. There's 20% less oxygen. And then when I get done with the swim, I'll get out in Lake Tahoe and I'll ride my bike 350 miles up and down the mountains to the bottom of Death Valley, where I'm going to run Badwater. Yeah.
That just sounds hot.
World's hardest ultra triathlon, one of the world's, right? And it's up 14,000 feet of elevation up and down during the day. It's between 120 and 30 degrees. So I'm combining 2 of the world's hardest events into a triathlon this time. I'm not doing the events. I'm just running, doing the courses. And the next movie, we're going to investigate how does bipolar play a role in me accomplishing these grandiose goals. I started to research the evolutionary aspects of bipolar and how it's a genetic link to Neanderthals. And if you think about when I did the Try for Hope, I was manic by day 2. And it really got me thinking, like, where does these tools come from? It was the mania that pushed me to that finish line.
Right.
And the evolutionary and the genetic, it's like when I needed to feed my village thousands of years ago, it was the guy carrying the spear that can do a 400-mile triathlon.
Right.
right? And I think a lot of times in society, we look at these people with these diagnoses of bipolar because they don't fit in a pretty little pink box. We say there's something wrong with you, take this pill. However, this has been tools that have evolved over thousands of years that society doesn't use anymore, right? They're not really needed. And I think what I want to show in movie number 2 is how bipolar is an evolutionary response, and it can be used as tools. And it's pretty cool, man.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's super
we'll have
cool.
to have you on more close to the launch of it and talk about it. Well, thank you for coming on, Brandon. Always a pleasure. Thank you for tuning in. If you pull anything from this message today, from this conversation, change is possible. You can build the life you want. Just keep coming back. Don't quit. Believe in yourself. And share and subscribe.